So now that all the expansion packs for Battlefield 1 have released in their entirety, we can look back and see what DLCs did well and what DLCs didn't do so well. In today's video, I'd just like to go over what I personally believe which DLC is the best in my eyes, and what offers you the most bang for your buck if you had to buy a single DLC. If you can't already tell from the gameplay in the background, I think that In the Name of the Tsar is the best DLC within Battlefield 1 and offers you the most content for the price tag of $15. It was a tough decision between this and They Shall Not Pass, but I find the weapons, maps, and the such just a little bit less enjoyable for me personally. Let's start off with a detail that is pretty common, and that is the sheer amount of content within this DLC. As the most extensive DLC for the Battlefield games made in Frostbite, the Russian DLC stands with 6 maps in total, 4 during the First World War and 2 representing the Russian Civil War. These maps are arguably the best looking within the entire game, from the cold shores of Albion to the bitter ground in Tsaritsyn. The DLC takes a big turn from the trenches, cities, and desert maps and brings us into the cold battlefields along the Eastern Front. Going from dull colored maps to the winter wonderland, if you will, is such a nice change of pace for me visually. In the Name of the Tsar also released with full HDR support for Battlefield 1, and the new maps take full advantage of that. The colors are much deeper and with darker blacks and more saturated fires and such. Gold weapon skins on these maps really shine, especially on maps such as Volga River. When I first played this DLC and saw footage of it, I was completely blown away by the beauty of these maps. You could argue whether or not the maps are good in terms of gameplay, but I think that they're decent enough outside of maybe 1 or 2 maps in game modes. I'm looking at you, Tsaritsyn in Operations. Another key influencer in this DLC is the weapons. Tsar brought us 11 new weapons for us to unlock, and I honestly have to say that it's worth buying the DLC just to have access to these weapons alone. When the community first got their hands on a couple of these guns, some cried out that they were overpowered. With the likes of the Fedorov Automat and the Parabellum, they broke the status quo for their weapon class and brought the fight to entirely new engagement distances where previously it would have been much more difficult to play effectively. Weapons like the Model 1900 shotgun became a favorite among many simply due to the concept of a double-barreled shotgun, and the experimental Maxim SMG 0818 gave some people a chance to try a weapon most likely no other video game in existence could allow you to use. Icons like the Mosin Nagant were very nice to see as well, not to mention the over-the-top animations for these new guns, with reloads for the Perino just being marvelous to look at. In the Name of the Tsar also brought us a new couple vehicles, and the introduction of the Heavy Bomber was a great addition, and currently, it actually may be a bit overpowered in some variants. It's slow, but can carry multiple passengers to help transport players across the map. It's a must pick for maps like Caporetto, where planes are your only way to get across the map without being trapped at your spawn. The Putilov Garford also comes along as well, but I think it's just a little bit too ineffective compared to other tanks within your selection. The DLC also has multiple factions, which is a first for Battlefield 1. The Russian Empire, White, and Red armies possess different uniforms, and the introduction of a female soldier along with the amazing voice acting is just awesome to experience. Additions like the female sniper for the Russian Empire and White Guard made some people upset, but I personally think that it was a nice add-on to the DLC. Factions don't really make or break a DLC, it's more of a cosmetic thing if anything, but it does help with things like immersion and whatnot, which in some cases is very important to certain individuals. The Coastal Gun is a good addition as well, while I think it actually helps more with maps outside of the DLC than in Tsar itself, as the Coastal Guns are extremely effective at taking out destroyers on maps like Cape Hills. Obviously, the DLC is not without its faults. The maps aren't the strongest, and game modes like Operations really show the ugly sides of these maps. Supply drop is almost a joke as well. As you can tell, it's nowhere near as popular a game mode as Frontlines was back in They Shall Not Pass. Anyways, compared to other DLCs, I just don't see how you could pass up a DLC like this compared to others. If you only had enough money to spend on one DLC, Tsar would be my first recommendation. The amount of content can't be surpassed, and its weapons are by far the best a DLC has offered to date. Also add on to that killer soundtrack as well. So yeah, that about wraps up today's video. I'm sure some of you have some differing opinions, so let me know down in the comments below. Rate and share if you enjoyed, and as always, it's been BloodHound, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.